It's Amelia here from Amelia Voice, and today I'm going to tell you a story that will make your jaw drop. A story about love, betrayal, and one twist that not even I saw coming. You know that feeling when you think you've found the one? When every laugh, every glance feels like the universe finally got it right? That's exactly how I felt about my fiancée, Clara. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room with a smile, who made everyone feel like they mattered. But what I didn't realize was that her affection came with a price tag. When we met, I was just an ordinary guy working hard to build my business. I wasn't flashy. I didn't wear designer suits or drive a car that screamed wealth. I believed in simple things: loyalty, kindness, and dreams built together. But Clara? She wanted the world, and she wanted it now. She used to tell me she loved my ambition, that she believed in me. But behind that beautiful smile was a hunger for more. A hunger that I couldn't satisfy, not yet. We were planning our wedding when the cracks started to show. She began comparing our life to others, scrolling endlessly through social media, pointing out her friends' diamond rings, luxury vacations, and goals relationships. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just harmless envy. But soon, it wasn't just envy, it was obsession. She'd drop comments like, "Wouldn't it be nice if we had that?" Or, "I just want a man who can make me feel secure." I thought she meant emotionally secure, but I was dead wrong. One Friday, I surprised her with dinner at a high-end restaurant where I had a meeting earlier that day. She seemed off, distracted, her eyes darting to the table behind me more than once. Afterward, she told me she had something important to discuss. My heart sank. That night, she confessed she'd met someone, a man she claimed could take better care of her. The words stung like knives. She didn't even try to soften it. She said he was older, successful, and that she needed stability. I remember staring at her, speechless, trying to understand how someone could trade love for luxury. I wanted to shout, to tell her that real love isn't measured by money or status. But I didn't. I just stood there, letting her walk away with my heart in pieces. The next morning, I deleted her number and threw myself into work. My company was on the verge of landing a massive client, someone whose investment could change everything. I decided to let success be my revenge. 2 months later, fate decided to serve the most unexpected dish of karma I'd ever seen. The new client requested a meeting at a luxury resort just outside the city. I had a few executives join me, but since my car was in service, I called the company's driver, a guy named Evan. He was new, polite, and punctual. When we pulled up to the resort, he opened my door and said, "You'll love this place, sir. They're hosting an engagement event today, too." I didn't think much of it until I stepped inside and heard that laugh. Her laugh. Clara's laugh. My pulse spiked. There she was, standing by the bar in a sparkling gold dress, her hand resting on the arm of an older man in a tailored suit. She looked radiant. And then she saw me. Her face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. I smiled. Not because I was happy to see her, but because I'd already moved past the pain. I had no intention of confronting her, but the universe had other plans. As I waited for the client, Evan approached, whispering, "Sir, that's my cousin over there." I turned to look, confused. "Who?" I asked. He nodded toward Clara and the man beside her. "The guy she's with. That's me. I'm just filling in for my boss today." My stomach flipped. "You mean, you're pretending to be him?" He nodded, smirking. "Yeah. He didn't want to attend, so I came instead. Needed someone to keep the lady company." My mind exploded with disbelief. The rich guy Clara had left me for was my chauffeur for the day. I felt every emotion crash over me: shock, anger, and then something close to satisfaction. Fate had written a plot twist so wild, not even I could have imagined it. I decided to play along, curious to see how deep her facade went. I walked up, calm and confident as her eyes widened in panic. "Clara," I said smoothly. "Fancy seeing you here." The man beside her, Evan, still in character, turned to me and extended a hand, pretending we were strangers. "Pleasure to meet you," he said with perfect composure. I shook his hand, forcing back a smirk. "Likewise." Clara's voice trembled as she stammered, Amelia, I didn't know you'd be here." I leaned closer, lowering my tone. Life's full of surprises, isn't it? As the event continued, Clara grew increasingly uncomfortable. She kept glancing at Evan, who was clearly enjoying the act. At one point, he excused himself to take a call, leaving her alone. That's when she tried to talk. "Listen," she said, forcing a smile. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought he could give me what I needed." I raised an eyebrow. "And did he?" She hesitated, eyes flickering toward Evan, who was now laughing on the phone near the lobby. "He's wonderful," she lied, but her voice cracked. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "You know what's funny, Clara? The universe always finds a way to show us what we really deserve." She looked at me, confused, unaware of the truth that was seconds away from detonating her illusion. When Evan returned, I gave him a subtle nod. He grinned and said, "Sir, your car's ready when you are." Clara froze. "Sir?" she repeated, her voice barely audible. I smiled kindly at her, the same way you'd smile at a stranger you've outgrown. "Yes, Clara," I said softly. "My chauffeur's waiting." The color drained from her face. The realization hit her like thunder, that the rich man she'd left me for wasn't rich at all. He was working for me. Her eyes welled up, but I didn't gloat. I simply turned to leave, saying, "Some lessons are worth more than gold." As I walked out, I caught Evan's grin in the rearview mirror. He didn't have to say a word. His eyes said it all. Karma had done its job perfectly. As I sat in the back seat of my car, watching the city blur by through the tinted windows, my mind replayed every moment like a movie I'd seen too many times. Clara's stunned face, her trembling lips, the way her confidence crumbled in front of me. It should have felt like victory. After all, she had left me for a fantasy, and now she was choking on the reality she'd built herself. But instead of joy, what I felt was something more complicated, closure wrapped in irony. Evan, my driver for the day and the unintentional actor in this twisted play, couldn't help but chuckle. "Man," he said, glancing at me through the mirror. "You should have seen her face when I called you sir." She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I smirked faintly. "Yeah, I noticed." He laughed again, shaking his head. "Crazy world. Guess she didn't expect her rich guy to be driving someone else's car." I didn't respond immediately. I just stared out the window, thinking about how fragile love becomes when it's built on the wrong foundation. Later that night, as I walked into my penthouse, the silence felt heavier than usual. The city lights painted golden patterns on the floor, reflecting off the glass walls like shards of memory. I poured myself a drink and sat down on the couch, letting the weight of the day sink in. People always talk about revenge as something sweet, something that heals the wound. But the truth, it doesn't heal. It just reminds you how deep the wound really was. Clara's betrayal had cut deeper than I'd admitted, not because she chose someone else, but because she never chose me for who I truly was. She chose the idea of what she thought I could become, the status, the success, the image. And when that illusion broke, so did her loyalty. Over the next few days, word got around. I didn't tell anyone, but stories have a way of spreading, especially in our circles. Apparently, Clara's new man had confessed the truth after the event, telling her he wasn't rich, just a driver doing his job. I almost felt bad for Evan. He said she screamed at him, called him names, even threw her drink before storming out. But what did she expect? When you play with hearts for profit, you eventually lose everything: love, respect, and even your dignity. My assistant, Harper, brought it up one morning while handing me my coffee. "So," she said casually, "I heard some drama went down at the resort last weekend." I raised an eyebrow, pretending not to know. "Really?" she smirked. "Come on, Amelia, everyone's talking about it. Clara's meltdown, the mystery millionaire, the chauffeur. It's like something out of a movie." I couldn't help but laugh. "Maybe it will be one day," I said, sipping my coffee. As weeks passed, life settled back into rhythm. My company hit a breakthrough. Our newest partnership took off, bringing in more success than I could have imagined. Ironically, the same success Clara had always craved now surrounded me, but without her shadow attached. I started traveling, meeting new people, living the life I'd worked for, and yet, deep down, I couldn't shake the sense that Clara hadn't learned her lesson. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon her profile. It was public again. The same smile, but something behind it looked different. The captions were no longer about love or luxury. They were about growth, self-love, and starting over. Maybe she was trying to rebrand herself, or maybe she was just searching for the next best thing. Either way, I had moved on. But life, as always, loves a sequel. A few months later, I received an invitation to a charity gala, a high-profile event where business leaders, celebrities, and influencers mingled under chandeliers and champagne lights. I almost declined, but Harper convinced me to attend. "You need to be seen, Amelia," she said. "Your name's on everyone's lips right now. This is your moment." So I went. The night was elegant, the atmosphere buzzing with power and wealth. Cameras flashed, laughter filled the air, and somewhere in that glittering crowd, I felt an odd sense of déjà vu. It didn't take long to find out why. Across the room, dressed in a sleek black gown, stood Clara. She looked stunning, as always, but there was something different this time. Less confidence, more desperation. She saw me almost immediately. Our eyes met, and for a brief second, time froze. She walked over slowly, every step calculated, her smile rehearsed. "Amelia," she said softly, "you look amazing." I smiled politely. "Thank you. You too." There was a pause, the kind of silence that feels heavy with everything left unsaid. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded toward a quiet corner near the balcony. As we stepped outside, the cool night air brushed against us, and the city stretched out below like a sea of lights. "I've been meaning to reach out," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I owe you an apology." I folded my arms. "For what? Choosing someone else? Or for pretending love was a business transaction?" She winced. "I know I was wrong. I was stupid and shallow, and I thought I needed stability, but I didn't realize you were already giving me that in your own way. I just didn't see it." Her eyes glistened as she spoke, but I wasn't sure if it was sincerity or performance. "I heard about your company," she continued. "You've done so well. I'm proud of you." I almost laughed at the irony. Proud? Now that the success she'd always wanted was finally visible, she suddenly remembered to be proud. "Clara," I said quietly, "you weren't wrong for wanting more. Everyone does. But the problem is, you wanted the shortcut, not the journey." She looked down ashamed. "I know," she whispered. "I lost something real." I took a deep breath, feeling the last pieces of resentment dissolve. "You didn't lose me because I wasn't enough. You lost me because you thought someone else was more." Her eyes met mine, filled with regret. "Do you think people can change?" she asked. I looked out at the skyline, the city pulsing with life below. "People can," I said softly, "but only if they stop chasing the wrong things." Before she could respond, someone called my name from inside. It was Harper waving me over. I turned back to Clara. "Take care of yourself," I said. "And maybe next time, look for love that doesn't come with a price tag." She nodded, tears threatening to spill. I walked back into the glitter and music, feeling lighter than I had in months. As the night went on, I mingled, laughed, and even danced. And for the first time since she left, I realized that closure isn't about revenge. It's about finally choosing yourself. The universe had its way of balancing things out, and in that moment, under the chandelier's glow, I knew I'd already won. But destiny wasn't done weaving its threads just yet. Because that night, as I was leaving, a journalist approached me with a microphone. "Amelia," she said, "you've had a remarkable year. Success, recognition, and even a viral story making rounds about your ex-fiancée's incident. Would you like to comment?" I smiled, meeting the camera with calm confidence. "All I'll say," I replied, "is that sometimes losing someone is the best investment you'll ever make." The clip went viral within hours. And while the world was busy gossiping about the drama, I was already writing the next chapter of my life. One where love, if it ever came again, wouldn't need a chauffeur to prove its worth. A few weeks passed since the gala, and life was humming with a new kind of energy. The story about the fiancé who chose a rich man who turned out to be a chauffeur had spread far and wide online, becoming an internet legend overnight. People dissected it, turned it into memes, short films, even podcast debates about greed and karma. And though my name wasn't directly mentioned in most versions, those who knew the truth couldn't help but smirk when they saw me. My assistant Harper jokingly called me the icon of poetic justice. I laughed, but deep inside, I was beginning to understand that this entire saga had changed me in ways I didn't expect. It wasn't just about heartbreak or revenge anymore. It was about clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes after life rips away your illusions and forces you to rebuild from scratch. One morning, while sipping coffee on my balcony overlooking the city skyline, I received a message from an unknown number. "Hi, Amelia. It's Evan. Hope you don't mind me reaching out." My lips curved into a small smile. Evan, the chauffeur who had unknowingly exposed the greatest irony of my life. I replied, "Of course not. What's up?" He texted back almost immediately. "I just wanted to thank you. After that day, things changed for me. Your story inspired my boss. He offered me a promotion. I'm managing a small team of drivers now." I couldn't help but grin. "That's amazing, Evan. You deserve it." He responded, "Also, Clara reached out to me last week. Tried to apologize. Guess she's still trying to make peace with what happened." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "Let her. Some people only realize the value of truth after living a lie." He replied with a single line that made me chuckle. She definitely learned it the hard way. After that, I put my phone down and looked out over the horizon. Life had a way of orchestrating perfect lessons when you least expected them. And though I'd found peace, part of me still wondered why Clara had chosen the path she did. Was it really greed, or was it fear? Fear of struggling, fear of uncertainty, fear of not having control? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how many people make the same mistake. We chase the illusion of comfort and security, not realizing that in doing so, we lose the very essence of love. I decided that if I was going to turn this story into something meaningful, it couldn't just end as gossip fodder or viral content. It had to become a message, so I did what I do best. I told the story. On my channel, Amelia Voice, I posted a video titled "She Left Me for a Rich Guy, Then Karma Arrived in a Limo." Within hours, it started gaining traction. My narration was raw, emotional, and real. I didn't name names or point fingers. I simply painted the truth, from the heartbreak to the twist that turned everything upside down. "Sometimes," I said in the video, "the people who underestimate you will one day realize they misjudged your value, not because you changed, but because their vision was too shallow to see it." The comments exploded with support. Thousands of people shared their own stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and poetic karma. I spent hours reading them, realizing just how universal this kind of pain was, and how healing it felt to talk about it. But as the video went viral, something unexpected happened. I received an email from a well-known production company. They wanted to adapt the story into a short film. At first, I thought it was a prank, but after a few calls, it became clear. They were serious. They said my voice had something magnetic, something that made people stop scrolling and listen. They wanted me to narrate it myself. I hesitated, not because I wasn't interested, but because turning my personal heartbreak into a cinematic story felt vulnerable. Yet, a part of me knew it was time to turn pain into power. "Let's do it," I finally said. The following weeks were a blur of meetings, scripts, and creative sessions. The production team worked tirelessly to recreate the essence of my experience, changing names and details, but keeping the emotional truth intact. Watching actors bring to life moments I'd actually lived was surreal. The moment where Clara told me she was leaving. The dinner scene. The resort confrontation. Every expression, every tear, every smirk. It all hit deeper than I expected. On the day of the recording, when I sat behind the microphone to narrate my lines, I took a deep breath and let it all out. "This isn't a story about revenge," I said in the closing line. "It's about realizing that sometimes rejection is just redirection." The short film premiered online 3 months later. Within days, it racked up millions of views. Comment sections filled with applause, sympathy, and disbelief. People called it the ultimate plot twist of modern love. Even news outlets picked it up, calling it a real-life story turned moral masterpiece. I was invited to interviews, podcasts, and even TED-style panels to talk about resilience and self-worth. It was strange how something that once broke me now became the reason for my breakthrough. And through it all, I stayed grounded, reminding myself that success means nothing if it costs your integrity. Then, one evening, just as I thought that chapter of my life was finally closed, I received a letter. Yes, an actual handwritten letter, sealed in an elegant envelope with familiar handwriting. I hesitated before opening it, already guessing who it was from. Inside, the letter began simply, "Dear Amelia, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to say this." It was from Clara. She wrote about how her world had fallen apart after the truth came out, how she'd lost not just me, but her own sense of identity. "I thought money could buy happiness," she wrote, "but I ended up bankrupt in ways that mattered most." She said she'd watched my video, the short film, even some interviews. "I hated myself at first," she admitted, "but then I started listening. You made me realize I've been chasing validation instead of love." I read the letter twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. There was no anger left in me, no bitterness, just acceptance. She wasn't the villain anymore. She was a mirror that reflected my own growth. Her betrayal had built me, her absence had strengthened me, and her regret was proof that karma didn't always punish. It sometimes taught. The next morning, I went live on my channel again. This time, the message was softer, wiser. "To everyone who's ever been betrayed," I said, "remember, closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you stop needing one." As the live chat filled with hearts and comments, I smiled, realizing that I'd come full circle. I wasn't just telling stories anymore. I was living them, learning from them, and sharing their lessons with the world. The girl who was once left behind for a fake millionaire had become the voice that millions listened to for truth. And maybe that was the greatest twist of all. Not the chauffeur, not the heartbreak, but the transformation that came after. Because in the end, the richest thing I ever gained wasn't money, fame, or revenge. It was peace. Months passed, and my life became a whirlwind of opportunities, interviews, and unexpected fame. The short film had taken off like wildfire, drawing in millions of viewers who couldn't stop talking about the fiancée who chose a chauffeur over her destiny. My inbox overflowed with messages from strangers, some sharing their own heartbreaks, others thanking me for giving them the strength to move on. My subscriber count on Amelia Voice skyrocketed, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. But success has a funny way of testing you. Sometimes it doesn't come with enemies. It comes with ghosts from your past. One chilly autumn evening, I was preparing for a live stream Q&A with my followers. The lights were perfect, the mic was on, and the comments were flooding in before I even said a word. Amelia, you're an inspiration. Tell us how you stayed strong. Will there be a sequel to your story? I smiled at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen froze me. Clara. My breath caught. I hadn't heard from her since the letter. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity, dangerous, familiar curiosity, won. I answered, Amelia. Her voice trembled, soft but real. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Clara, I said carefully. You haven't called in months. What's going on? There was a pause. A long, uncertain silence filled with words neither of us knew how to say. Then she exhaled. I've been watching your videos, listening to your talks. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to thank you. Thank me? I echoed, leaning back in my chair. Yes, she said, her tone more grounded than I'd ever heard it. For telling the truth. For showing me who I really was. Her honesty disarmed me. The Clara I'd known had always been polished, perfect, and calculated. But the woman on the phone sounded human, broken even. I've been working at a nonprofit, she continued, trying to rebuild myself. It's not glamorous, but it feels real. For the first time, I heard something I'd never expected. Humility. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Not just for what I did to you, but for what I became. I was silent for a moment, then said quietly, You don't need my forgiveness, Clara. You need your own. She sniffled softly. I'm trying, she whispered. I really am. Before hanging up, she added, I'm proud of you, Amelia. You turned our story into something beautiful. When the line went dead, I sat there in silence, staring at the blinking light on my mic. It was surreal, how something that once tore me apart had come full circle into closure. Not just for me, but for her too. That night, I went live with my audience. My topic changed completely from what I'd planned. Let's talk about forgiveness, I began. Thousands of hearts fluttered across the screen as I spoke. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back into your life, I said. It's about letting them out of your pain. The chat exploded with emotional reactions, and I knew people felt what I meant. Sometimes the best revenge, I continued, is peace. Because when you forgive, you take back your power. The live ended with a flood of comments like, You saved me tonight, and I needed this more than you know. But while my online life flourished, something deeper inside me began to stir, a need for new purpose. Telling my story was powerful, yes, but I didn't want to be defined by a heartbreak forever. I wanted to build something that inspired people long after the drama faded. So I started working on a book, a memoir called The Lesson of the Chauffeur. I poured everything into it, the raw pain, the healing, the irony, and the triumph. It wasn't just about Clara or me. It was about everyone who'd ever been underestimated, deceived, or left behind. During the process, I revisited old photos, journals, even messages I'd buried deep in my archives. Each page I wrote felt like a small act of closure, a way of rewriting the ending on my own terms. By the time I finished the manuscript, I no longer felt like the woman who'd been dumped. I felt like the woman who'd risen. When the book was finally published, it exploded across platforms, hitting bestseller lists within weeks. Readers called it the most relatable heartbreak story of the decade. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a movement. One afternoon, as I was preparing for a book signing event, I received a message from Evan. Hey boss, he joked. Yes. He still called me that. I saw your book at the airport bookstore. Front display. You've officially gone global. I laughed, typing back, Guess we both made it, huh? He replied, Funny thing though. Remember Clara? She applied for a PR role at our company. She didn't know I worked here. My eyes widened, then I chuckled softly. And? I texted. I put in a good word, he said. People deserve a second chance. His message lingered in my mind long after I put the phone down. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was how the story was supposed to end. Not with revenge, not even with triumph, but with redemption. The book tour took me to cities I'd only dreamed of visiting. In every crowd, someone would tell me their own version of my story, how they'd been betrayed, how they'd learned, how they'd found their worth again. I'd smile, sign their books, and remind them, every heartbreak is just a prequel to your comeback. The phrase became a slogan for my community, a movement of resilience that spread like wildfire online. I even started a foundation that helped people, especially women, rebuild after emotional or financial manipulation. The irony wasn't lost on me. Clara had once chased wealth, but I had built true richness by helping others heal. Months later, I stood backstage at a global empowerment summit, preparing to give my biggest speech yet. Thousands of people were waiting to hear me. As the lights dimmed and the host introduced me, I took a deep breath, remembering every moment that had led me here. The betrayal, the chauffeur, the pain, the peace. I stepped onto the stage, greeted by a thunderous wave of applause. "Thank you," I began, my voice steady but filled with emotion. If someone told me a few years ago that being dumped for a rich guy would lead me here, I'd have laughed. But life doesn't break you, it builds you. The crowd erupted. I continued. The truth is, sometimes we lose people so we can find ourselves. Sometimes rejection is the universe saying, you deserve better. And sometimes karma doesn't come in the form of revenge, it comes in the form of growth. I paused, letting the words sink in. Remember this, I said finally. You don't have to chase love that costs you your worth. Because one day, someone will see your value, and they won't need to be fooled by a chauffeur to recognize it. The audience rose to their feet, the applause echoing through the hall like thunder. In that moment, I realized the real twist wasn't that Clara had left me. It was that she'd unknowingly pushed me toward everything I was meant to become. She'd taught me that love built on greed crumbles, but love built on truth lasts forever, even if that love is for yourself. As the lights bathed the stage in gold, I smiled, not the smile of revenge, not even of victory, but of peace. Because sometimes, the richest ending to a broken story is simply the one where you rise above it.